A few weeks ago, I took this bike to Mount Washington. That trip took a few days, it was 500 miles, and I absolutely had a blast. But there were some areas where I could have improved to make it even more enjoyable. This time around, I'm taking it even further, and I'm challenging myself to see if I can plan and experience the perfect trip. I'm going to take an academic or a scientific approach to answering that question, so be sure to follow. So what makes a trip perfect? In my mind, there are 4 variables that come together to maximize the joy that I feel on a trip. The first is comfort, second is scenery, third is the destination, and fourth is the playlist. Together, these 4 combine to influence the unit of measure to judge the success of this trip: joy. So let's explore the joy scale and see how it sounds. At idle, that's my steady state. That's where nothing hurts, I'm getting things accomplished at home, I feel great. When you move up is the baseline of joy that I'll be judging other trips like this one, which is the Mount Washington trip. Remember, I'm new to these long trips, and the Mount Washington trip was very joyful for me. I had incredible fun, and that is the reason I'm doing more of these trips. So this is a great spot to be. Now, at the very top of the scale is the joy experienced by a 5-year-old at Disney. Hard to achieve, so I'm aiming for that right there. Good morning. It is 7:05 a.m. on Friday, and today's the day I leave. Now, I know you don't know where I'm going yet, and I think we'll get into that. But for now, I have to go for an appointment to donate blood, come back, pack, and head out. And so why don't we cover what we're doing? Here's the plan in a nutshell. I wanted to leave after my blood donation, go see Clingmans Dome atop of Kuwohi Mountains in Tennessee, but in day 1 I would sleep over in the Trinkle Mansion. The next day I would go see the Smoky Mountains, and then the third day from the Trinkle Mansion I would head home, but not before stopping at the Dixie Caverns and the Frontier Cultural Museum, covering a total of about 1,300 miles in 3 days. But first, I had to go for my blood donation appointment. By the way, did you know that the average age of blood donors in the US is over 40?
This is all the alcohol you're allowed to have for today.
Of course. Back at home, it was time to pack and leave because it was already later than when I wanted to depart. I did notice here that one of the saddlebags is larger than the other, and I don't know if that's unique to my specific motorcycle or if that was common in other Goldwings. Let me know in the comments below. Admittedly, due to my lack of preparation, I was running rather late, and I still had to go get gas. Interesting, because I had started to prepare for this trip a while back. Take a look. One of the problems I have on long rides is that my ear loops that I use for hearing protection, they tend to fall out of my ears. Based on some research, I've learned that there is a more effective solution to get comfortable, long-lasting hearing protection. Because now I'm on my way to see a hearing specialist. There, they're going to get an impression of my ear, and they will create custom molded earplugs. I'm really excited about those. I don't really know how the visit is going to go, but let's go find out, and I will report back when I get out. Okay, I just came out of the appointment, and let me tell you what happened. First of all, it dawned on me a little later, but I was wondering, why is everybody yelling? That became obvious very quickly. Wonderful staff. What they do is they inject some material. I forgot to ask her what it was, but they put like a cotton or something with rope to protect the eardrum. They inject material and it fills up your ear and you hear crackling. You have to sit there for 5 minutes until it hardens or takes shape. There's no pain or anything. Pulling it is a little uncomfortable because it feels like there's a suction. So that was a little uncomfortable, but overall it's a seamless experience. She said that it'll be flush with the ear. It's not going to be a problem for the helmet. And unlike earplugs that end, it'll have a little bit more material to make greater contact with your ear so that it seals. So overall, it was a great experience. They're going to try and rush it to give it to me in time for my trip. So by the time you're watching this, we'll know if that worked or not. Hey guys, it's the morning of. I'm back from the blood donation and I am about ready to leave. It's cold. It's about 55 degrees. So it's cold, but on a bike, it's even colder. So I'm dressed in layers. I'm going to have a scarf around. But the good news is I was able to get my earplugs. Here they are. I tried them yesterday. They fit great and they have this little thing to pull them out. So they pose no problem at all. So I'm really happy about that. I got my playlist. I just got to pack the bike and head out. With a full tank, I was finally on my way. Comfortable, warm, and greeted by the sun. I knew I was on a path to pure enjoyment and that whatever morning tension I had felt earlier would soon melt away with the miles. But sometimes even the best laid rides don't go exactly as planned. More on that later. For now, the ride continued toward my next planned fuel stop. Somewhere along the way, another rider began following me, and before long, I became the unspoken leader of our small pack. We settled into an easy rhythm, matching pace, making room for each other, as we weaved through slower traffic. There was no need for words, just that shared understanding between riders. The kind that turns a stretch of highway into a quiet bond. For nearly an hour, we rode together, accommodating each other's moves, keeping the flow steady, and with a final nod, I signaled for my next exit. He continued on as I peeled away towards my fuel stop. All right, I got to my second stop, and yeah, I'm starting to get tired. But the weather's nice, and the scenery is starting to get a lot nicer. I have only 2.5 hours left. I say only. It's probably, it says 2 hours and 19 minutes, 151 miles. Honestly, it's this time that the playlist makes a big difference. I'm still happy. I'm still enjoying myself. It's nice to meet other bikers on the road and find a groove together. It makes for a more fun time. So let's keep going. I'll check back with you when I arrive. The cool thing about riding long distances is you start to feel a subtle shift in the atmosphere. It's not just the scenery changing, you begin to pick up a whole new cultural flavor. And as I rolled into town, I could feel those Western vibes setting in. So one of the things I like about riding into these small towns, or I assume it's small, I don't know how big it is, but it just feels like an old Western movie, right? I love that sign. Where a stranger goes in riding into town and there's a bit of an exploration that happens on the stranger's behalf with the town, and the opposite is true. So I like what I'm seeing so far. This is very nice. And that's one of the beauties of riding, is you get to experience, whether it's nature or towns, you experience it in a way that's a little bit more intimate than you would have inside the car or a steel cage. Boy, that was a long trip. Any good restaurants to eat here? Fine jewelry. Insurance. Burger Express, okay. Well, now we know we have a plan B. I'm in the mood for a steak. By the way, sorry about the windshield. As any rider would know, that many miles, you're going to build up some battle scars. It's a nice church. It's coming up. Oh, is that it? I think that's it. Oh, that looks nice. Trinkle Mansion. Oh, I love that. That looks so cool. But this is it. The American flag up at the top. All right, I'm gonna turn it off just to be polite. Okay, talk about the destination. I love this place. Let me film a little bit. It was so sweet because the attendant just gave me a tour, and I'm gonna butcher it, but she was telling me, she took me to every room and gave me the history. So here, let's take a look. Here is what you call the ladies' room. These windows are historic. They couldn't change them because they're on the National Registry, but because the same windows over here are not facing the outside, they could change those windows and they look the same. I asked and she said, yes, we made them that way. So these are insulated, but these are not. I'm skipping so much detail only because I'm not very familiar with everything she said. But this is a place where I can spend some time, nice and quiet. Too bad I'm going to be leaving tomorrow morning. So this is the gentleman's room, and this is the gentleman. He's the brother of the governor, I think in I don't remember what year she told me. And then you've got this sunroom that was also very nice. And let's go show you my room. Up where my room is going to be. Not this room, but this is my room. And I like it. So, all right, let me go downstairs, grab my stuff, and get settled in. So after checking out the Trinkle Mansion and showing you around, I cleaned up and went out for a steak. The town had such a nice, relaxed vibe, quiet streets, brick sidewalks, and those engraved bricks with little messages honoring people. I thought that was really touching. I continued on from there until I reached the restaurant and had my meal. The steak was great, exactly what I needed after that ride. Then I walked back, called it a night, though I can't say I slept all that well. And the next morning, it felt like the right time to look back on the day before. Good morning. It's about 7 a.m. this morning. Oh, 7:40. And it's time to reflect on the ride from yesterday. I rode for about 7 hours, and let's see how it stacks up against the joy scale. Well, things didn't actually start very well. Number one, my blood donation appointment took a lot longer than I had expected, and you should have seen that needle. The second is there are big fluctuations in temperature. So while in the morning I was dressed warmly, a few hours in, I started to get very warm. So slow start. For about an hour, the distance I was driving, the scenery on it was very familiar. And familiar scenery, it doesn't really count because you don't see the scenery anymore. It's just there. So on comfort, I wasn't doing very well because of how warm I got. Scenery wasn't doing so great. And that wasn't even the worst of it. Things became even more challenging. For about 2 hours along the way, I kept hitting traffic and more traffic and construction and more traffic. And while the surface of Route 81 or Interstate 81 is actually very good, the construction and the traffic really was starting to put a bummer on things. So my joy meter was really in trouble. I actually can't help but laugh. I needed to do something different. So I started to get nosy. I started to look at what cars were carrying on top of them, what they were towing. I saw a hitchhiker. I saw some fights. And it was getting a little bit better, but not as much as I wanted. My joy meter was in trouble, but I'm not worried because yesterday wasn't meant to be the climax of this trip. Today is, however. So I had breakfast, waited for the hourglass to tell me when to pour and drink my tea, suited up, and headed out. I was finally ready to go get some excitement, and after setting up the bike with all the equipment that I barely know how to use, I set out and headed the wrong way. All right, it's time to go. Kuwohi, here we come. I think I have to make a left. I hope I find a gas station on the way. So over breakfast, Patty, the host, came and told us this really sad but interesting story. In 1955, she thinks, or 1954, polio hit this town really hard. And they called it the year with no children. Oh, look at that, gas station, how convenient. And they apparently when people used to come at the entrance of the town, they'd see a sign that says keep your windows closed and keep going. They had the highest polio cases per capita in the entire country, so pretty devastating. But she lived through that, and she was telling us the stories. Amazing, you know, you go through these towns, but there's so many stories, and that's part of traveling, which I love. And of course my rear tire is complaining that I don't have enough air, when in reality it'll heat up in just a little bit. So with that, we're gonna pump some gas and head on down for some excitement. Let's go. By now you've correctly figured that my joy meter was nowhere near where it needs to be, but that was about to change, because for the next 100 miles I was encountering the perfect road, perfect weather, and oscillating in and out of gorgeous scenery.
stunning.
So, yesterday was great. Route 81 actually from here going all the way to the Smoky Mountains was very pleasant. And, you know, the scenery started to get really nice. It wasn't until the last, I'd say, hour that I started to get that wow experience from the trees and the roads and the heights and the rolling hills. So definitely met my expectations. I think I would come back. There are some chinks in my planning though that I'm starting to recognize. One is I think I need to time these visits better because it was very crowded. There seemed to be a lot of car enthusiasts there. So it kind of took away from the experience a little bit. And then I also think that the distances that I'm traveling are probably a stretch for what I can tolerate. Because when I came back to the mansion yesterday, I was exhausted and I had a really good night's sleep. This morning I was conflicted. I thought, should I stop at the Dixie Caverns and the Cultural Museum? And I was really considering just going straight home, especially that the Dixie Caverns open at 10. So that would mean it would push my arrival time back home. So another tip for myself is these distances for a 3-day vacation are kind of a stretch. Anyways, I'm gonna withhold judgment on where this trip fits on the joy scale until I get back home, because that's a factor. But let me just give a shout out to the Trinkle Mansion B&B. Patty runs a lovely house. It's clean. I don't even know why anybody would stay at, other chains, but these bed and breakfast, this place was absolutely amazing. The breakfast was great. And she tells you the story behind what you see, and that really does make it very appealing. So a huge shout out to Trinkle Mansion B&B. Catch you at the Dixie Caverns, and then we'll go home and reflect on the score. In the end, I didn't quite reach my target on the joy scale for this trip, and that's mostly due to my own planning. I didn't fully anticipate how fatigue would shape my decisions. Still, this ride comes just a little below Mount Washington, which means it was an incredibly enjoyable experience nonetheless. Each trip teaches me something new, and I'll keep learning, adapting, and fine-tuning as I chase that perfect ride. Thanks for watching, ride safe, and please subscribe if you've enjoyed this video.